Well, Happy New Year's. My name is Pastor Jim from First Lutheran here in Beaver Dam. It's been a long year. 2020 has been a very difficult year for many people, and now we are in a new year. But still, we struggle with the pandemic and socially distancing and the holiday blues. Seasonal affect disorder affects a lot of people, and so I thought it would be kind of helpful if we maybe talk about that a little bit. I invited Dennis Richards. He is the chaplain from the local hospital here, and he's also at Hillside Home and Hospice Care. And we invited Dennis to come and be with us this evening and talk about what is he seeing out in the community in his line of work, dealing with still the pandemic and the holiday blues.
Thank you, Pastor Jim, for having me here today. The topic of grief is on our minds with everything we're going through with the COVID-19 pandemic and all that involves. And so working as a grief counselor, not only with hospice, but also being open to the community and working with the hospital here in town, I deal with a lot of situations that are transpiring because of the COVID-19 or increased because of it.
What are you seeing in your line of work, and what does it look like in the faces of the people that you work with?
Whatever you're going through in your life, when you have compound grief, in other words, more than one loss at a time, it only increases or enhances whatever it is you're going through, the feelings of what you're going through. I jotted a few things down because I didn't want to forget to mention some of these things. But really, when you're going through additional problems or multiple problems, it actually intensifies the effects of what you're going through. For example, if you have the loss of a loved one, but you're also struggling with finances, that's just going to increase the problem, the strength of that feeling of loss. And so therefore, all of us, as we're going through this COVID-19 pandemic, are really feeling an increase in the anxiety or the stress or the influence of whatever the pain is that we're going through. And I am seeing an increased number of people dealing with depression, discouragement, suffering, frustration. The COVID-19 situation is really causing people an intensified pain in whatever it is they're already going through. And this is just an additional thing to deal with. And of course, change is difficult. And often our losses include change in our lives. At the same time, I'm seeing some good things with the COVID-19 situation. It hasn't all been bad or negative. Some people are learning to reprioritize their lives and realizing some things are just not that important. People are also going out of their way to do things, the simple things that they used to not do because we get so caught up in life and so busy. And so I see families getting together to do things outside, to ride their bikes together, take hikes together. And so it's not all been bad or negative. We see people realizing the blessings we have in the little things in life. It's not just the big things, but the little things that matter. And so when you have to stop and just not be able to do things that are normal in life, it seems to help us to reprioritize and then just count our blessings and see just how good some of the little things are that God gives us in our lives. So yes, there's some negatives going on in people's lives, but there's some positives as well. But I think it's an opportunity for all of us to learn a lot as we go through this.
And are you able to share with us a few tips to help combat this problem? What might we do on a level that we can maybe within our own family and our own self-care, and maybe professionally, what can we do to help combat the problem of the blues?
So as we look at the situation dealing with COVID-19 especially and specifically, people are often asking, how do I cope? How do I get through this? What are some tips to help me know how to manage my life through this situation? And so I was thinking about that, and I've written down several things, about 6 items I want to just mention quickly, some tips I think that can help. And first of all, I want you to recognize that God never leaves you nor forsakes you as his child. Right now, a lot of people feel so isolated, they feel alone. It's very easy to get discouraged. And so we have to remember as people of faith that God never leaves us nor forsakes us. And Satan, of course, wants to isolate us, divide and conquer, discourage us. And he'll use various situations to do that in our lives, including grief and loss, and especially the COVID-19 pandemic. So just remember that God never leaves you, even when it feels like he's not there, he is. A second thing I was thinking about is with regard to the seasonal affect disorder. I did not realize how many people struggle with the seasonal affect disorder until working in hospice and really getting into homes and seeing what people are going through. And actually, I think just about everyone struggles to some point. When you get into February or March of winter and we've had 2 or 3 weeks of overcast days, you start feeling that sense of discouragement or despair, just being kind of despondent. And so there are things you can do in regards to that. One is the SAD light therapy lamps. A lot of people are using those lamps, and I think they're very helpful. You can put it in your office, you can put it in your home, and it does seem to enable you to get through those dark days, especially as these days are getting shorter and shorter leading up toward Christmas. Another important thing I think for stress and for times when you can't see the sun as you'd like to is exercise. Exercise is a huge help when it comes to stress. It's a great stress reliever. It makes you feel better because you really are not only what you think, but you are what you eat and you are what you do. And so eating right and exercising goes a long way to your mental health and your emotions. It's all interconnected. And so the more healthy you are physically, the more healthy you will be mentally. And of course, that corresponds into your emotions as well, because your emotions are the result ultimately of your thinking. And when you're thinking clearer, it'll help go a long way to keeping you from being depressed in those dark days. When it comes to eating, staying away a little more from sugar, carbohydrates, and I know when you're stuck in the house, it's easy to eat more and eat the fun things, especially during the holidays, but I encourage you to try to eat in a way that helps maintain your health and will maintain your spirits as well. A third thing I was thinking about is that the problem we're having right now with all of this isolation is that God has created us as social beings. We were created to have a relationship to him, a relationship to others. That's kind of what makes us unique from the animal kingdom. We have kind of a God consciousness. We have this desire for socializing with other people. And so therefore, when we go through something like this pandemic where we're very isolated for long periods of time, that can be very unhealthy for us mentally and emotionally. And so one of the reasons I think God established the church was because he knew that we needed that socialization. We needed that fellowship, that communion, that community. And so whenever you can do it safely, and if the church is having services, I encourage you to go have that fellowship, have that community. For a lot of churches, they're not able to do that, so you can make use of the media as much as possible. I encourage you to do that with your family, using the various media and social apps to communicate with them, but also realizing that that ultimately does not replace the real social activity that you need with your family and your friends. Something, too, I was thinking about was the importance of having dinner or conversation over a meal. I've had people say that they're taking the time now with the COVID pandemic to eat together as a family when before everyone was running in different directions. It's interesting when you study the New Testament, you'll find that God goes out of his way to provide us a lot of information about Christ and the disciples and others having conversation over a meal when there's so many other things that could have been discussed. I think there's an important element to that. People open their hearts over a meal. They relax and speak, they share their hearts, and it's a very intimate situation. So if you have your personal, immediate family there living with you, take the time to have those meals. And I think that'll go a long way to giving you a healthier feel during the situation. A fourth thing I was thinking about is to remember that there are always opportunities in every trial. It's hard to say that to people who are going through a great loss, especially the death of a loved one. But in the end, we know that when we go through various trials, whatever it might be, that there are opportunities for something positive in it. Opportunities for personal growth, opportunities to learn what it is to go through that certain trial, opportunity now to know how to reach out to other people in a way you couldn't do before because you've experienced it. You've been there. And so you can be a help and a blessing to others who are going through that as well. And of course, we want to be drawn closer to other people. And my prayer for others going through loss and trials and through the COVID pandemic is that we're drawn closer to each other, not pushed away, that we're drawn closer to God and that we don't push him away. So there are opportunities in every trial for something positive to be learned and to grow as people. A fifth thing, and we often hear people say, and I hear this often in hospice, is that God never gives you more than you can handle. However, that's not exactly accurate. I know personally that God gives you more than you can handle. I've had several surgeries last year, and I know that it was bigger than me. When we study the book of Job, we see that the things that Job went through were bigger than him. So God will often allow us to go through trials that are bigger than us so that we can go to a God who is bigger than everything. And, in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul shares all the struggles and trials he went through in 2 Corinthians 11. And yet he shares in chapter 12 how he was thankful for those trials because they gave him an opportunity to see that God was alive and well in his life, that God was a reality because he saw God do miraculous things. So if you and I never have a trial or a difficulty bigger than us, then we can handle it ourselves. But when we get a situation in our lives like what we're dealing with now, that's really bigger than us, it gives God an opportunity to show himself in a very special way, which would strengthen our faith and just be a real blessing to us. So really, trials are an opportunity for God to do something great. When you believe, though, that God never gives you anything bigger than what you can handle, and then it happens, it leads to a lot of disappointment. It leads to anger. It leads to frustration. And I see that often in our grief groups. People are very angry at God or angry because they thought they should never receive anything bigger than what they could handle. So it's important to understand that, yes, we do receive and experience things in life that are bigger than us, but it's an opportunity to be drawn closer to God. And it's also a great opportunity to allow other people to be drawn closer to us and us to them. So again, it's important to allow people into our lives in those situations and to allow it to strengthen our relationships. And then finally, remember there is always hope. I was going through a great trial about 4 years ago, and a pastor friend of mine that I was talking to said, "Dennis, remember there is always hope." It's a simple concept, something I know down in my heart, but it just wasn't up in my head at the time. And I just need to realize that there's always hope, because often that's what we feel, hopeless. A lot of people today are feeling hopeless. And of course, that's what Satan wants. And we don't want to be hopeless. As long as God is in the picture, and he is, there's always hope. I was thinking of Psalm 31:5 that says, "Weeping may last for a night, but joy comes in the morning." And the morning is coming. Even as we deal with the dark days coming, the shortened days, the dreary days, the concerns with COVID and what might take place in our lives or our families' lives, we have to remember there's always hope for the believer, for the child of God. And so ultimately, my prayer for each one of you is that God will use the trials of the day to make us better people, these difficult times in our lives to draw us closer to one another and to God. And in the end, we can be better people for having gone through the trials that we're going through now. And when I think, as I finish, I just want to mention that the greatest generation, they're termed the greatest generation of the early 1900s, was the generation that went through World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, and all the trials and difficulties that went along with that. And we find that they were better people because of it. I believe they came out of it stronger. They came out of it more united. They came out of it as people who could make this nation even greater. And we see that as we went through the 1900s. So again, be encouraged. Realize there's hope. You're not alone in this. We're in this together. And as we do this together with God's enabling, we'll come out as better people on the other side.
Dennis, I want to thank you for being with us tonight and helping us to talk about this topic, this issue. mental health is very important, and we all struggle in some shape and form. So get the help that you need, talk with one another, and even come by the church and talk with us here if need to be. God bless you. Again, Happy New Year, and we can get through this together. Take care.